Welcome to Ask Me Anything session. Our guest today is Paul Thomas Walsh, Chief Operating Officer at Elinvar, a wealth tech platform as a service offering digital solutions for asset and wealth managers. Hello, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting me to talk today. It's great to be here.
So I'd like us to start from a general question about the sector itself. So can you tell us a bit about wealth tech? What have been the biggest advancements of wealth tech so far?
Oh, it's very interesting. Maybe just to start with a bit of context of the last year and a half. Obviously, the world has gone through a very interesting phase, but I think there was a McKinsey report published this year, in the summer of this year, that did point to the fact that through I think 2020, there was still a growth, about a 5% growth in AUM in Western Europe, even through all of the challenges. So it's a 25 trillion euro business. So I think that's a good backdrop or good bit of context to the overall wealth tech or wealth management market. I think in wealth tech generally, I think the digital ecosystem continues to be incredibly important, i.e. where participants can focus on their core competencies, but then also connect with others in that ecosystem to grow their business, to reach new markets, to reach new clients. And so that ecosystem is so important, and I think that's definitely going to be a growth area. I think this is something, certainly across the European Union, is digitization via democratization. What does that mean? It means more people having access to financial products, and that's absolutely important, that's absolutely essential. And it's certainly, which I'll talk more a little bit later, certainly an area that is of interest to the European FinTech Association. Elinvar is the founder, one of the founding members of the European FinTech Association. So that's making financial services or financial products available to individual people. And I think through that is also individualization. So we're all used to using our phones with apps and customizing in a way that suits us. So I think all wealth managers or wealth management tech providers are aware that individualization is actually very, very important. It's not just a certain standard and everyone gets the same. I think people are now used to being able to tailor and adjust, and providers need to be able to tailor and adjust their offerings to the underlying investor. And I think that's those things together are happening very naturally and organically together, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Very interesting. So I'm guessing this is where Elinvar's comes in. And can you tell us a bit more about Elinvar's offering and who it is addressed to?
Sure. So what Elinvar as a platform, as a service, really tries to do is to be at the heart of that ecosystem, is that to be really there to help connect providers and receivers of services within that ecosystem. That's very, very important. So what we have developed and continue to develop is a B2B2C platform, whereby we not just provide services to our partners, financial services, banks, private banks, wealth managers, but we also provide and want to connect to other providers in the market. So third-party providers such as AML or KYC, also custodian banks, market data, reference data providers, and actually sit at the heart of that so that we can, through our platform as a service, provide a platform that connects those partners within the ecosystem. And I think we do that not just in one area what we try and have a full value chain. So we have what we call service packages. So we don't just look at, let's say, portfolio management. We actually try and look at the end-to-end value chain. So we look at online and on-site acquisition. We look at the full onboarding process. I mentioned AML and KYC. We do portfolio management, but then also reporting, invoicing, metrics, providing a front end and providing an app, and really offering a sort of full value chain so that those different participants in the market and those different partners in the market can really see the platform as a service as being able to give them what they need in a scalable way. And I think that's really important to us, and being able to do that all with our BaFin license, which of course we take it incredibly seriously. I think that's one of the things that really differentiates us as well.
Mm-hmm. Anything else in the context of your competitors that you could elaborate on?
So I think we're really focused on the B2B market, and I think that for us, that's a really core area, really the core area, because what we try and do is provide for our partners, not just services that work for them, but in the case of, let's say, Don Royal, we provide a platform and scaling for them so that they can, and they have moved existing book of business onto the platform. Mm-hmm. So then when we talk about scaling and configuration, it means that we don't just provide sort of a single offering, we provide an offering that can help our partners scale their business as well. And that's really, really essential, because if you think about it, one of the core, let's say, differentiating factors, other than the end-to-end services we offer, is this ability that many of our partners really want to focus on costs, legacy technology costs, and that's a big thing that certainly wealth management, it's a key consideration. So if we can provide through our platform as a service, the ability for our partners to not only use our platform to migrate existing book of business onto the platform, but do it in a way that helps them reduce their technology costs, then of course that's a really powerful thing for us. And it's really something that we really want to continue with, because again, we're offering that full value chain. And through the customization and configuration, which we'll talk about, it gives them the ability to tailor the view or use the roles and entitlements within the platform to help them manage their underlying B clients as well. So it almost becomes a triple B to C model. And that scaling is very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Thank you.
So before we will ask you about individualization, which is a very interesting aspect, mm-hmm. I just want to go a little bit deeper and ask you about the type of customers that you are, as a business, you are targeting. So is this that asset management companies are your target, or some specific segment of those companies, or maybe you are more targeting technical solution providers that will use your platform to deliver some solution to wealth management or asset management companies?
Okay, sure. So let's break it into sort of three broad areas. The first would be financial services providers. So that's private banks, discretionary portfolio managers, large portfolio managers that have an existing client base and are looking to digitize their business. That's sort of one major group. The next group would be, let's say, insurance companies. So we know that sometimes with insurance products, there can be a financial investment aspect to that as well, or linked to that or wrapped around that. So I think that's something that enables those insurance partners to be able to use the platform as well. The third group, which we're very excited about, is this continued growth of what we would call our providers, our provide side. So custodian banks, KYC, AML providers, market data, reference data. Because by connecting those to our platform via APIs, what it means is that we don't just receive the services that they offer, i.e. market data for, let's just say, ESG, because we'll talk about ESG later, I'm sure. We're not just connecting to those and getting those services, but that actually is a benefit to our existing partners as well. So you asked about sort of the type of partner or the type of partner we would work with. Well, it's really someone that can benefit from having custodian bank connection via our platform, because again, we go back and we don't just offer a visual display of the portfolio. We enable portfolio management as well. So he or she, whichever the advisor or portfolio manager is, he or she can use the platform, can execute with a custodian bank, use the market data and the reference data that's coming in, and more, I'm sure, ESG reference data as well. And so it gives them not just more connectivity, but it gives them more scale in terms of what they're doing, because that custodian bank may have existing partners as well. So that's why this platform as a service, connecting the parts of the ecosystem, is really, really important for us.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. That's very clear. Okay, so let's talk about this individualization. You mentioned this already as an important aspect of what you're trying to achieve, and what kind of a value you want to deliver to your clients or partners. So how is this possible to achieve this and also assure the proper level of scalability? So is there anything special in your approach? How you would like to actually deliver the individualization and scalability at the same time?
Sure. So let me answer that with a sort of a slightly different question first. So in terms of our technology offering, if we think about what that is, so we have this concept of native cloud-based activity. So we're present on the cloud. It's sort of all stored within the European Union, which helps from a passporting perspective. Secure data standards. That combined with our microservice architecture, where we can, on a sort of agile way, and as a chief operating officer, sometimes I'm not as agile as I want to be with this, but that's a different thing. We're always trying to deploy, but it means that we can deploy features and functionality, which I'll talk about in a moment, in a way that is scalable, because our partners, they receive the deployments that we make. Because of the microservice architecture and the databases attached to those, it enables us to make releases, to have our client success desk talk to them about the features, talk to them about what we're deploying, and they don't need to do anything. Okay, they might need to configure, a new value that's added to a certain existing configuration, but through this distributed model of using microservices, it means that the platform is then just updated for them. We try and be consistent in how we release features. So we're releasing features to the platform, and then we work with the partners based on the service packages they have to configure those. And that's really, for us, another way we try and differentiate, because it creates scalability in what we're doing. We're connecting these partners, but also when we provide new features and services on the platform, if it's within a service package that is applicable to them, it's available to them with configuration. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make the maximum efficiency in how we release and deploy and support the platform for the largest number of partners on the platform who are using our platform truly as a service.
Great, thanks for this. So I would like to ask about technology side of it. So are there any specific technologies that you use and maybe advocate at the same time, in your platform?
Yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned the cloud-based, and that for sure is going to be something that grows as a sort of a standard technology. I think that is also a key way for reduction of costs, legacy technology costs and traditional, enormous server rooms of technology. And, I'm old enough to remember all of those as well. So I think cloud-based architecture, secure, in compliance with important data protection rules within the European Union. I think that's very, very important, and that is something I think that is useful for people to know in terms of the ecosystem, but it's also important for our license. I think the microservice architecture as well, it's scalable, secure, and gives our developers, truly the chance to move towards truly agile. So we're creating functionality, new features, and releasing that in a truly agile way that they can release. They can, build, test, release, and it's sort of continually strengthening the platform. And then I think the various diagnosis tools and other technologies that the teams are using is always there to make them feel that they are working on newer technology, but also we want to be in line with the market and lead where possible in terms of the technologies that we offer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so I have a side question to this because not sure if this is a confidential or not, but so do you use like one specific cloud provider for a product, or maybe you have a strategy to actually be compatible with few of them, and if you stick only to one, so the question is to which one?
Yeah, I probably won't answer the which one, but we do have an established data provider, a cloud provider that we use. I think I would answer the question slightly differently. I would look at what is the regulatory expectation around cloud services going forward, because cloud services going forward, it's definitely from a cost, from a scaling, from a similar model to what you see in the US and in Asia. It's just absolutely, the future. So regardless of which provider you have, or regardless of maybe a fallback provider or an A/B provider, let's say, so you have an A and then you fall back to B. I think the standards of security are really important. I think the standards of testing, penetration testing, your making sure that you are, monitoring those services, and really having a very clear idea of the way in which that can help you scale, but also just being aware of the challenges and the regulatory requirements around that. So I think that's the way I would answer that, in terms of having a provider, making sure that they are the right provider, making sure that they're compliant. Because again, one of our differentiating factors is our BaFin license, and we take that, incredibly seriously. And so when our partners are talking to us, of course, they have questions about, cloud services. How is this managed? How do you check? How do you validate? So that's something very, very important to what we do, and we spend a lot of time talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I can imagine that, when you start talking to your, potential new clients or partners, there probably naturally will be some kind of a pressure from time to time to maybe use this or another cloud provider. And, if you stick to one, then, it naturally creates kind of a challenge during the, onboarding or sales process to maybe convince this or another company to actually use your solution on this specific cloud provider. So do you already experience such a pressure, or maybe it's so low that it doesn't make any difference from your perspective as a business?
The way I would answer it, and I'm certainly not involved in as many client discussions as others are, I would say the more important factor is what is the criteria when a partner is talking to us. And let's say it is a partner that has, very legacy IT, let's say, and they're used to having a server room and all the data is stored locally. Obviously, data privacy rules, obviously in Germany, that's incredibly important as well. So I think the questions, from what I would understand, aren't so much, is it provider X or provider Y that you're using? It's more, how do you make sure that the following controls are in place? How do you make sure the following safety is in place? And that's part of us choosing that particular provider. It's to make sure that they are that we have enough transparency in terms of costs, in terms of what we are receiving, how that is performing, alerting, notification, security, communication. And those are really, I think, the more important questions that they're answering, because a partner who, let's say, may have legacy IT, cloud-based architecture or cloud-based technology might be just very new for them. So I think it's less provider A or provider B, because they may not have experience of those different providers anyway. It's more the, what does that cloud provider do to make sure that my data is safe, or my underlying customer data is safe? We're notified of any issues. Those are more the conversations, I think. And those are very fair questions. Those are completely valid questions and important questions, because, you know, the earlier question in terms of how is wealth management changing, this is one of the areas that financial services generally will be changing in terms of cloud-based architecture and less sort of solid, heavy server-driven data. Because if we think about passporting across the European Union, if we think about cross-border activity, then I think what the European Union is trying to do, I think, will be really, really important. And there will be more regulation, I'm sure, looking at cloud service and cloud service providers. So your concept of A or B provider, I think that might be an area that we see more of. You know, there's more, you have to apply more scrutiny, or you have to maybe make a comparison, or have two providers. You know, that is something that for sure might come along.
Great. Thanks for this. So we would like to talk with you a little bit about the future of wealth management, and maybe wealth tech as a part of it. But I would like to give a little bit maybe more context to this. So because, you know, your company is somehow shaping this future because of the, you know, very modern platform as a service, you know, business model or approach, which is already kind of a frontier, I would say, in the development of this sector or domain. And it seems that this kind of technological solutions are bringing, you know, a lot of advantages in the space of operational efficiency of the companies that are, you know, using your solution. So, but at the same time, we can think about some maybe advancements or innovations in the, you know, more on the product field or a value proposition field, not only operational efficiency of wealth management companies. So having in mind those two areas of potential advancements, one, the, you know, operational efficiency of asset management companies, wealth management companies, and on the other side, the advancements in the offering, the value proposition for the clients, what you would see, you know, as a potential future, where this will go, in your opinion, when it comes to wealth management in general?
Sure. So let me try and answer the first part in terms of that operational efficiency. So I think it's probably going to be more of the same. So more cloud-based, more microservice architecture, more connecting the different providers within this ecosystem, and the partnerships there. Because what a partner wants to be able to do is to bring their core competencies and make maximum use of it. That's what they want to do. They want to have their products and their services, their wealth services, be available to the largest number of people, using the most available sources of data, in the most efficient way. That's clear. So that moving away from legacy technology to cloud-based to microservice-based, I think, is definitely going to happen. I think continuing to connect people within the ecosystem, that's definitely going to happen as well, because it's going to create more accessibility. And certainly within the EU, where there shouldn't be any barriers, or there should be fewer barriers to people entering the market and providing new services. And I think what I would like to see, and I think will happen, is that smaller providers, let's say you have, so we mentioned ESG providers, ESG. I think if you have a really solid, strong ESG provider, that provider could find within this ecosystem that they have a lot of connection points. And they can make maximum use of their core competency in an efficient way, because using our platform or others, they have connection to multiple users within that ecosystem. And I think that's going to be the core. So this many-to-many linkage, I think, will be the future. In terms of the product offering, so your second part of your question, I think ESG generally is going to play a much bigger part, but I think linked to that, there will be the sustainability of what is being worked on, but also the individualization. So I think it's as more and more people become financially aware and start investing or start looking to have their money invested in topics that really matter to them. And it really will be that. It's what does it matter to me? So environmental. So I've been following what's happening in Glasgow very closely in terms of, let's say by 2030, there's a commitment to end deforestation across 80% of the forested nations. I think that's a really important part for me personally, and I think for many people. So I think products in the wealth management space will be looking at benchmarks like that, or ESG targets like that, and saying, okay, how do we track investments towards that? Making sure that the products are aligned with the global goals that are decided from an ESG perspective. But I think then more than that, wealth management and financial services generally, I think, is going to lead the way in making sustainability just absolutely essential within financial services. I think within the economy generally, financial services and the products that they offer, wealth or other, has a responsibility, I think, and will be very closely expected to make sure that sustainability is part of what they're doing, either in terms of how they operate, but also the services that they provide, and also the products that they offer. So, making sure that, strategies aligned to a person's personal economic situation, but also their ESG situation. Because you may have an investor who wants to make sure that the money that they invest helps economies aligned with those goals of reducing deforestation by 2030. That's those are the sorts of things. So I think it's going to be financial services playing a really strong part in the economy generally. I think you'll see more and more individualization being at the heart of products that are out there, and certainly ESG and sustainability will be at the core of that, I think.
Mm-hmm. Great, thanks for this. So, yeah, I think that, like, in my opinion, the one important aspect that probably will be also an important value to address, that technology for sure will help to achieve this, is also some level of transparency, much bigger than to this day, about what is actually happening, behind the scenes. From the investor perspective. It's somehow, like, in my opinion, it somehow connects to what you said about, maybe your motivation or your goals, and as an individual investor or group of investors, and probably this will be also like a like a need or a challenge to address in the coming years?
Yeah, I agree, because if you think about it, the goals of sustainability goals or ESG goals or whatever, they have to be measured. So the data and how data is used and how data is made transparent, I think is going to be very, very important, because I think people with more social conscience and with more interest in how things are being done, not just the end result, how are we getting there? You're right. I think people will start to say, please make that more transparent to me. I want to see how, not just are these investments, is this strategy performing, but how are we doing that? And so I think using data, making data available across ESG generally, but generally sustainability data, people are going to ask for that more, I think, because, as I said, it's not just the economic return that people are interested in, it's the methodology, or it's the practices of a company, or how are you doing that, and be more transparent. So shareholders are for sure now being across companies asking for more transparency around how the board is operating, and show me the split of how many males, females, what's your gender diversity, what's your ethnic diversity. That's really important, and it should be. These are really important topics. So I think, yes, it's the whole, not just the economic performance, it's the general operational performance that I think is really important to people, and they will ask for more transparency around that. I do agree with that. Yes.
Yes, and when you mentioned like those like additional values that people want to get from investments, not only the financial ones, it's create somehow potentially like a challenge. Okay, so how to translate those values into the metrics that can be actually used in the investment world? That's really interesting, I guess.
Yeah, that is challenging, because let's say if you have a benchmark, a strategy benchmark of how that strategy or portfolio is performing, you can compare that performance versus the benchmark, because you have data points on, let's say, carbon emissions. Okay, there's a huge amount of carbon emission derivatives products being traded. There's a lot of data there. In terms of social awareness or sustainability or gender diversity, there isn't as much data there. It's harder to get specific data points and to do that in a really scalable way, in a way that you can almost make a composite of that. You can make an index of that. I'm sure people far smarter than me will figure out a way to do that, but I think that's something that people are going to be looking for. It's almost like a social awareness index or something like that. And these are definitely going to be data points and data requirements that I think people have more and more, because yes, it's not just the end result of the percentage, it's show me how we're doing this, how we're performing along the way.
Mm-hmm. Great. Thanks for those insights. Very interesting.
No problem.